Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here, and as always, I do hope that this podcast finds you well. Now today I have a very special friend who's agreed to come on and share her amazing healing journey over the years, Julie Hegarty from Ireland. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, Donegal. Beautiful Donegal, yes.
Yeah. Now, before we chat with Julie, I'm just going to give you a little bit of sort of background information. Julie started practicing yoga following a hospitalization of being diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2012. The illness left her feeling very weak with muscle wastage, arthritis, weight loss. So she decided she needed more exercise, but in a gentle form to aid her recovery. And of course, this really fits into what we talk about with endometriosis when we're healing. And, slow is fast and being gentle. What she soon noticed was that her sleep patterns changed, her anxiety decreased, and most of all, she started to move in a way that she hadn't been able to do since her 20s. As her practice improved, she started moving more dynamically, with yoga classes, and soon became totally and utterly hooked on yoga, so much so that she trained as a yoga teacher herself. And after qualifying, she's embarked on further training to practice various types of yoga, like yin yoga and things like that as well. So I'm so pleased that Julie's agreed to come on and chat today, because not only have we known each other, oh my God, is it like 20 years or something now?
Something like that, yes.
It was just so lovely to and I feel that yoga was a really important part of my journey. And, I'll talk about that in a minute. But Julie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's a joy to have you on here again. And when you're hearing me relay your story there, what was coming up for you when you're hearing that?
What comes up, what's interesting, what comes up is how ill I was when you hear about the beginning. Where my journey started, and how sick I really was. And I didn't have any grasp of what my illness was going to entail at all, which was which you'd be familiar with, a great deal of pain, which we always have illnesses that create this pain, that we just don't know how to control, and weight loss, and I think even that, the anxiety over being so sick and not knowing, how am I going to feel like this forever? Is this going to go on? Am I ever going to feel better again? And having young children, and like yourself, your children were young when your illness presented itself, and you don't want your children to see you like that either. So there's a bit of fear.
You feel awful, don't you? You're really scared, like or being a
you
bad
feel
mom.
So responsible that you've got this illness, and everyone around you is worried for you, or you're trying your best to
put on this face and put on this front, aren't you? It's like, like you're trying to keep it all together almost, aren't you?
Absolutely. And then you order all the books from Amazon.
Yeah,
you read all about it. And you try all these different methods, and no criticism to the medical profession at all, because when
it has its place, obviously.
It does, absolutely. When someone comes into hospital that is so sick and they need some medicine, they will give you medicine, and that will bring you
something. It's like pulling a weed out but not taking the root up, and
Correct.
What it does is it might reduce the pain in that moment with morphine, or at one point I was taking
absolutely, and
36 painkillers a day at one point, and you
just said, what the effects of that on other parts of your body, so
exactly.
when you're taking some medicine, if you look at all the contraindications of the medicine that you're taking, and you think, oh, you have to get your liver checked regularly. Well, why
Exactly.
what's it doing to my liver? So and it didn't feel right for me to have so much medication. But I was very grateful because I did start to feel better. And then when I started to feel better, that's when I went to my first yoga class. Because physically I was just a shell of my former self. I was 7 stone. I mean, ridiculous weight. And you lose it in all the wrong places, because I was at 45, so you don't lose it in places, you lose it in places like, you lose your bottom.
Yes,
but you still got your bottom ends up underneath your armpit instead. You're like, what?
It's displaced, it's moved.
Yeah. But you lose weight, and you see the skin hanging off you, and your jaw and your skin gets older and drier, and all this type of thing. And listening back to that, that's where I thought that when I got into remission, I thought, that's it, that's my journey. My journey had only just started.
Exactly.
And then the yoga. So the very first yoga class that I went to.
Well, sorry, do you mind if I stop you there and just go back to the Crohn's, because you very expertly skimmed over that, and I know that was a particularly painful, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Absolutely.
I remember
and
when
it
you
was
hospitalized,
I was hospitalized. I was in hospital for 3 weeks, and I was put on a steroid drip. And steroids are they're great for bringing down inflammation, but they're quite sore on the body. There's quite a lot of things. And then I was put on an immune suppressant called azathioprine, which I had to come off actually because my white blood cell count went down so low.
Immune suppressant.
I was immune suppressant, exactly. So, but initially the pain, and I kept going to the doctor all the time saying, I'm getting this terrible, you've got IBS, or you're depressed, or you're this, or you're that, or the other.
How do the two connect?
Exactly. And what I do probably understand is, like, they will ask you what's going on in your life right now, and you'll tell them what's going on in your life right now, and they will say, well, that's because you're disrupted. Okay, so we'll treat you for the most common disruption that we know of in that area. And Crohn's wasn't something that had even been discussed with me by the GP. And it was only when I was hospitalized, luckily for me, I went into the Royal Infirmary in Edinburgh and into A&E, and the consultant that night happened to be from the GI hospital, the gastroenterologist, with his students, and he decided to bring them to A&E, found me, and
we're going to use this guinea pig here.
We're going to use it, and he sort of like pressed down on my small intestine, and I screamed out at me, and he went, she's got Crohn's disease, and they were like, gather around, everyone, feel this, and the tears literally, Wendy, because it was like I had a name for it. This is what I've got. He knew instantly. Of course, I had to the MRI and the colonoscopies and all that kind of thing just to confirm the diagnosis. But I knew what it was that I had.
I think it's poignant what you said there, like the relief, obviously the pain to get the name for it, but the relief in having a name. And I think, again, a lot of women who'll be listening to this with endometriosis, they can go on average between 8 and 10 years with pain without getting any form. And but anyway, you having that and then allowed you then to at least start down a pathway to heal.
Well, exactly. So I could attach my illness now to a label. That's what I have. I have Crohn's disease. What I didn't know about Crohn's disease, and this is interesting as well, going into, well, how do you feel now? What I didn't understand about Crohn's disease at the time is what triggers it. What is it that's happening in here mentally? What is it happening in my body physically that is creating this spike in my disease? Why am I going into disease? And I've had 3 flares, that first initial one. And it coincided with a very stressful period in my life. And hands up, yes, the stress I didn't deal with very well. I was smoking at the time, and I was drinking at the time because the stress was, it was very,
I remember your parties.
Don't tell anyone. I'm a good girl now.
They
I
were
honestly am.
epic. They were legendary. I remember you coming around to the house one day to get your handbag, and we both just looked at each other like, oh my God, I'm dying on my feet.
I
From a
know.
hangover.
It was good. We had good time. But I think what I did, I think I buried my anxiety in maybe drinking too much alcohol, maybe not eating the right foods,
of course,
smoking, all those things. So all those things are terrible for your gut anyway. But what I didn't realize is the anxiety. And it was the anxiety that was literally eating me from the inside out.
I was just going to say, because we try and shove it down. We were talking before we came on, like, especially as women, we're taught to be a good girl, sit pretty, don't cause a fuss, you know, be seen and not heard, twirl our hair. And then, but what happens if you have that anxiety and you can't, your throat and your everything's clamped shut, you know, it goes down.
Absolutely. You don't vocalize it. You try not to even vocalize that you're in any pain, particularly when you've got a young family and a husband, and you don't want to
be a fuss or cause any problems or have them worry or anything like that.
No, exactly, because you're meant to be the strong person in the family group, and you know, if there's any weakness there, and again, that will absolutely affect you. And what I learned through my yoga, actually through my studies, was this HPA axis that was going all the time. So what was happening with me is my adrenaline was all really on high alert the whole time. So the amount of cortisol that was rushing into my body was creating this adrenal fatigue. And what that does then, with the amount of cortisol inside the gut, it starts to break down the mucus lining of the gut. And then that follows on. You ulcerate your food, you know, you start to get IBS is very similar in some of the symptoms to Crohn's disease. It feels like IBS, where in my case, it was not constipation, but it was more, you know, loose bowels that I couldn't control. And things like, oh my God, Wendy, we used to have Sunday lunch, walk down to the braids, you know, to walk off the Sunday lunch. I couldn't even get as far as the gate because I need to run back to the toilet again. And, you know, things used to happen, like walking around Waitrose or something, and like, I need a toilet right now, and rushing back to the car and having an accident, not being able to, very distressing. And of course, this is bubbling again with the anxiety.
Stress, It's so that active control thing, isn't it? Like when these things are happening to your body and you feel you have no control or no connection to what's going on.
Absolutely. And what it coincides with, this very stressful moment in my life coincided with the death of my mother-in-law.
Oh gosh.
So there was grief and stress, anxiety. Okay, so this is where the flare-up came. I'm just jumping ahead to the other two flares. I did go into remission for 5 years. And I came out of, I went back into a flare when I had a very, very stressful working environment from the job at the time. And my mother died very suddenly. Off again. And then the third one was another work stress when my father died. So it was huge. And it was almost like the universe was going, right, we're just dumping everything on you now. We just wait. It's all coming. So the coincidence of having extraordinarily stressful environments on top of a death of a parent compounded where my body couldn't physically cope.
I mean, your body just said no, and your body was just like, you've got to stop. You know, you need to pay attention because of it sounds like obviously the outpouring of grief. And again, as women, I'm doing the collective, but as women, we are the strong ones. We're the ones that carry the weight of everyone else, and we are extended to everyone. But when it comes to our own, who is there for us? And we've had to learn to just be there for us. But then even at that point, we're pushing away us from ourselves, and the body goes, no, you can't do that.
Absolutely. And that all is because we have this disconnect. We don't listen to ourselves. We don't listen to our bodies. You know, and we were talking earlier.
We've just not been taught how to listen.
We haven't. And I use this analogy in my yoga classes all the time. We discussed it earlier. It's like if you're driving your car and a red light comes on, you go straight to the garage and say,
Yeah.
can you fix my car? And as you said, if you've got an orange light, you think, I'll be all right. It'll be all right.
I can do another 100 miles on this sucker in the car.
I can't afford a mechanic this week.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's that
And we do
wishful
that.
thinking, isn't it? It's like, oh, I'm
we
fine,
think,
or I don't want to cause a fuss, or I don't want to upset
yeah.
anyone.
And you normalize things. And I think, how many years did I normalize that I couldn't go for a walk after eating a meal?
Well, that's
I normalized it
because you learn to normalize and adapt your life around the physical pain, because you hadn't been taught at school or the generations before us or the ancestral line. There was no time to tune in and learn and listen. It was just survival. So you adapted your life around your body, and then that's when you become more miserable, and then your body fills up more because you're not able to deal with the emotions.
Absolutely.
And even understand of what the heck these emotions mean, let alone embrace them.
And I think sometimes, I won't say the word shame because that's the wrong word, but I think sometimes we feel that we can't express ourselves because it's embarrassing. That's probably the best word.
No, I think the word shame can be shame, blame, guilt. There's these
guilt.
Things,
yeah.
You know, kind of like there's no other role model for us to step into. And if we don't have, you know, for whatever reason, when you lose your mom or you're disconnected, you maybe don't have a close relationship with your mom for whatever reason, you know, when we're not part of, like we talked about, you know, before this, you know, if we were part of female tribes, we could go to an aunt or a step aunt or a granny or something. You know, there's not the female connectedness that we all seek in our soul and our hearts to go, how do we deal with this? You know,
it's so interesting actually, because you've hit on something there, because I was living 500 miles away from my mother at the time, and my sisters. One of my sisters was 1,000 miles away, you know, so I didn't have that.
I remember you saying that in Edinburgh, like your mom, I could feel your pull naturally to be there because.
And the reason why I actually left Edinburgh to move to Bath was I wanted my parents, because I grew up in South Wales. My parents were in South Wales, and Bath was just an hour and 20 minutes from home. And we moved there, so I wanted to be closer to my mum. I really felt that need to go home, if you know what I mean.
And I think, again, our society's just evolved from this industrialized society where everybody's spread and separate, but actually our great ancestors grew up in villages and tribes and towns where we were all connected, where we had an extended family.
Absolutely. Someone to say, if you're not feeling well today, I'll pick up the children. I'll feed them.
Give you permission just to say, today, for this afternoon, I'm going to allow myself to put my feet up and not feel bad and guilty about it.
I know. And then, you know, then we get sick, and then it all starts to manifest. And what I've discovered with the yoga is that if you don't confront these signals, these things that are coming up, if you don't listen to your body, then it's just going to go, all right, I'll just carry on there. And then what happens?
I have this analogy that I use. It's called the feather, the brick, and the truck.
Yes.
It's along the lines of I love your red light one. But it's like the body initially might tickle you with something and say, hello, can you pay attention a little? And we kind of brush off the feather. And then it might throw the wee brick at us and go, hello, you really are not paying attention. And then when we ignore it, then the truck comes along and hits us and floors us. So we're forced to listen, you know. But like you say, if we had other, you know, obviously we can't change our communities now, but what we can do is learn through you know, beautiful practices like yoga. And I loved when you shared about the very first yoga session that you had. Do you want to share that? Like that was really moving.
It was wonderful. And I went to this yoga class, and it was in the local gym, and I met this lovely lady called Diane. Actually, I ended up doing my teacher training with Diane.
Nice.
And I sat there, and I was weak and I was pathetic. and I said the first time I ever went to yoga was this Bikram class, and I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what.
Well, you have to share. That's a funny story, though.
So I was living in London at the time, and I thought, I'll try this yoga. And I went in, and it was a small room, small dark room, really, really hot because it's Bikram, really hot yoga. And there was a guy in his underpants, profusely sweating. And I thought, oh
Get me out of here.
no. And every time he flicked his head, the sweat would go with it. And I thought, oh, it's not me. This is weird. I don't like this. I don't like
this. Is not for me. This hot yoga with a man in underpants is not for me.
And I didn't really know there was any other type of yoga apart from, I think growing up, I think there was a lady called Val in the local church hall that did yoga, and I associated with like old women. They were probably younger than I am now, actually, when I think about it, you know. I just thought, you know, that sort of thing.
That's it. It's interesting, isn't it? These associations that we have for certain things, and then when you discover, for me, yoga, I remember the very first time I was too embarrassed to go to a class because everybody looked like I was just embarrassed to be around these people that were showing off.
Doing their Instagram shots,
Instagram shots, and like, you know, sticking their bum in your face and whatever, you know, and you're just like, put it away. But anyway, I got a private yoga instructor, and she was so lovely, and I had to say to her, like, just go gently, because I'll probably want to push myself, just make me go and then even just the child's pose of your head down on the mat, and the tears just dropped onto the mat. And I was so taken aback.
It's incredible. And you know,
that moment, it was
that moment, and it's energy. And what we realize, these pockets of energy. I talk about, if you think about your chakras, we talk about chakras in yoga, and anybody that's listening to this are familiar with yoga, they'll know. But you know, we have our crown chakra, which is outwards, so here, and then our third eye, our throat, our heart, solar plexus, and then we've got the sacral chakra and the root chakra. So those are our energy centers. And when you think about where the chakras are, so your third eye, you've got your pineal and your pituitary glands in your brain. A lot of work goes on there. So that's all our endocrine system, okay? Yeah. Then the throat chakra, you mentioned the jaw, you know, your tightness in the jaw. You've got your lymphatic, you've got your thyroid, you've got your thymus, again. And you think about what's going on there. And the heart and lungs, heat. Then you've got your liver and your spleen. Then you've got your stomach and your intestines. And then you've got your with root chakra. So with endometriosis, I would work with people on that with the sacral chakra, because it's all down here, and the root chakra as well. When you think about it, it's heat. And there are organs in the body that are creating heat. And heat is energy. And it's light as well as heat and energy. And we feel after a yoga practice, if we can get rid of this energy, the energy that's sitting there, and I call them like my stagnant pools.
Yeah, and it's almost like displaced energy, isn't it? It's energy that's stagnant and
it's
not
stagnant.
It's not moving. It's like a pond, isn't it? It's like a pond.
It's like
stinky rather than a flowing river.
Yes. Absolutely. And we need to be able to get all this flowing, because when the body isn't flowing properly, when the endocrine system isn't operating properly, when the cardiovascular system, when the nervous system, you know, when
the immune system, you know,
all the systems in the body, when they aren't functioning well, your body then becomes into unease.
Yes, exactly.
And these stagnant pools, this is your feather moment, actually. I quite like that analogy. Yes. So when your body's uneasy in different areas, you feel that little tickly feather. That can very quickly go to dis-ease. You know, so if you've got problems, if you've got some stagnant here, maybe it's your liver or your spleen, you know, a lot of the time people have lots of problems with their spleen, and it could be that they're bouts, because your spleen, your white and red blood cells, I always call it like the washing machine. They wash it all and get it all out. And if that's not very efficient, maybe you're having lots of colds. And spleen energy is very, very important for energy medicine in the body. Absolutely. Your spleen is the first place I would ever go to in a yin practice, for example. Anybody that comes to me for a one-to-one, first thing I'll do is like, what's going on here? And then we'll work around all the other parts of the body. And it's releasing that energy. But most importantly, it's finding space. And the space.
And you talked about your first yoga session, and you talked about
I felt the breathing. So as you might remember as well, when you go to a yoga class and they say breathe, and you think, I know how to breathe.
You realize you're not breathing, like,
and you realize, oh my God,
into your body.
I'm holding my breath. And what I realized is that sometimes you breathe in and out in different ways that you shouldn't, you know, particularly I used to do a lot of running when I was younger, and I breathe in and out completely the wrong way. I had to relearn how to breathe in and out. I know that sounds crazy. So just things like holding your breath, holding the space, and then just allowing yourself to go into this moment where you are literally in the moment before you take that exhale. So you become almost for a moment in this state of bliss because you're meditating in that moment. I always say, in that moment. And when I say to people in a if we're doing a pranayama yoga practice, when I say breathe in and I say hold the breath, whilst you're holding your breath, think of your next thought and then exhale. And I always ask people, what was your next thought? And every single time, nothing. You can't, when you say think of your next thought,
it's clever.
You know, it's very clever because most of our thoughts are thinking about something that's just happened. We can't think of our next thought because it hasn't happened yet, you know.
Or it's like, when can I let the breath out? I'm dying.
But they're so busy thinking about their next thought that they've forgotten they're holding their breath. And then when they exhale, it's like oh.
Well, I loved what you said earlier about how your first yoga class, you know, that you needed space. And you went there.
I felt my body needed space, absolutely. And because I tell you what it was, I think, you know, when you're ill and when you've got something that's wrong in the body, you feel the heat. You feel like your body is absolutely burning up inside.
You feel the tension as well. Like everything's just all up inside.
It's all everything's all tense and triangular, absolutely. And you can't breathe. And you feel almost like, I just want to rip out what's going on, rip it out, get it out. And you need space to breathe in your body. And that very first class, I came out and I was like, I felt some space in my body, and I thought that was weird.
And it's weird, isn't it? Because I remember the same kind of crying on the mat and being surprised there was tears coming from me. But then, like yourself, I was just like, oh, that was so simple. It was so easy, but yet so powerful. And I think we overcomplicate things because we get so many different messages bombarding us, you know. Like, you should do this, climb Mount Everest and you'll be healed. You're like, what? Or rip everything out and you'll be healed. What? You know, it's quite simple. It is quite simple. I call it the KISS principle, keeping it super simple. It's like how simple, because and just you saying that, even just saying you needed space and you went to the mat, you went to the yoga mat,
went to the mat,
space. And who would have thought that you would have got that need met by going to
it became addictive. I have to say, it became very addictive, and I've read that out.
Hey, what a good addiction, though, eh?
Oh, I know.
You're gonna have
I'm addicted. I love it. I'm addicted to breathing. Hey,
I'm addicted to breathing in oxygen and being releasing stress.
But also as well, I had a similar experience to you when I did the first time I ever did a pose called Supta Baddha Konasana, which is reclined butterfly.
Why do you say that with a few glasses of wine, eh?
Yes, you can say anything with 2 glasses of wine. But it's a reclined butterfly, so you bring your arms up, but you do it so that you've got a block across the back of your thoracic spine there, okay? And so you're elevating your heart space. So when you've got that external rotation in your shoulders, and you bring your head back, you're opening into the throat also. And then you bring your feet together, so you're opening into the hips, your knees come out, you're opening your hips. So the whole of your body's open. So you're coming deep into your heart chakra and your lung, so your heart and lung meridian. You're getting right deep into your sacral chakra, and we hold so much in our hips. Oh
my God, absolutely.
We hold loads. I can tell by somebody walking into the room now
if their hips are tight.
And you know, and emotionally what that's doing for them as well. So this was a hip opening, so external rotation of the hips, external rotation of the shoulders, bringing your head back. And how often would we like, I can't bring my head back? You're holding on because with your jaw, because you think your head's gonna fall off. You know, so it's like, so I did that the first time, same thing, tears rolling down. my face.
And it's interesting hearing you say that, because I can see, you know, you going into that position. I can see, because we all can sometimes just curl in, like,
We
into
do. We
tortoise.
round our shoulders.
Yeah,
We
just
hunch
head
forward.
down and then back into the shell. We call it tortoise, you know. And over the
Abs-
years, and I'm sure your posture is beautiful now. I've seen you in some of your
Actually, I'm not sitting very well. I just noticed. I should sit up a little. Too
but yeah,
so.
and it's funny you talk about that block in between, because that's where I keep a lot of tension, is right in there. And if my kids walk past me and put their hand in between there, I'm like, oh, that's so lovely. But I can just imagine, like, that openness is counter to what your body's had to adapt to, because of your environment, your upbringing, your stories, your beliefs, your conditioning, to get through life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many poses actually in yoga as well that you wouldn't normally do. So, for example, I get people to lift up, when they lift up the chin, open your jaw, and they're sitting in the yoga class with an open jaw. People are very subconscious about doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to show my tongue or my teeth. I get them to do lion breath, where you're like, doing all that, and they get very conscious about that.
But again, that's conditioning, though, isn't it? Because girls
conditioning, correct.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're holding in that, it's like a taboo, really, kind of. Again, that can have a huge effect on our anxiety as well, because we're not able to express.
There's no expression, though, is there? There's no expression. It's all, again, it's very westernized approach to feelings and emotions. You see people in some other countries, and they're like screaming and shouting and wailing over a bereavement or a death, where we're like, stiff upper lip, dab the tears, and like, no, we're fine, when clearly we're not. And it's like not an allowance of a fluidity of emotions. And that's what I think yoga reminds us through the breath and through just the presence.
Totally. And getting those emotions out. Now, that's so interesting you're talking about death, actually, because I mentioned with the death of my my parents and my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
We live in Ireland now. And what we have in Ireland is a 3-day wake.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And no matter what, you have a 3-day wake, and then on the 3rd day, then your body is taken to be buried or cremated or whatever.
It's so respectful, isn't it? It's like
it's so respectful.
It gives the living a chance to, pass on their regards and kind of.
But it is actually beautiful. And for those who've never heard of a wake, who've never experienced a wake, or the body is brought home. And every time I've been to a wake, because it's very traditional in Donegal. In fact, there's a saying, actually, when people say, "Oh, it's Piccadilly Circus in here." They're like, "Oh, it's like a Donegal go wake in here." It's just everybody has to go, because it's a really respectful thing.
Yeah.
And everybody looks, all the, I don't know, it sounds quite morbid, but all of the bodies that I've seen, they look restful.
Yeah,
they look
peaceful,
peaceful.
don't they? Yeah.
And it's closure. And then the grieving process is not so, with my mum, for example. I wasn't around. My mum died suddenly. She had an aneurysm through the night. I never saw her again. So, I didn't have that closure. And I think that the grief. So that coming together, when we're grouping together.
It's the collective grief. So it equally allows permission for everybody to
absolutely
say their respects and to cry, and also to laugh and joke and have the memory of their life and their respect.
Yes.
I heard a funny story recently. I was watching this documentary about John Lennon, and how Yoko Ono, when he died, refused to have a funeral or a ceremony for him, and just threw his ashes in Central Park in America, and everyone was traumatized by the fact that they weren't able to grieve his death. So I love that this 3-day week, 3D wake, sorry, is so respectful of a person that was living, and also from a psychological perspective, as a person living, watching this, there's just this, I'm going to be thought of and remembered, and we're all from our psyche and from an emotional perspective, it's just a nice closure to the next.
It is a closure, and it involves, there are small communities here, but it involves the whole community. The whole community comes together when there's a funeral. The whole community goes to
what's that like for you? I mean, now that you're in that small community, because I think from knowing you, I think you really needed that sort of roots into the connection of being part of something like that, you know?
Oh no, absolutely. I've moved around a bit. I grew up in South Wales. I lived in Edinburgh for 10 years and Bath for 10 years, and now I'm here. Yeah. And this is like where I grew up. So I grew up in a very small village in South Wales, and
Does
everybody
that feel like completing a circle almost, do you
I
think?
am completing a circle. And what's lovely is that I'm looking over. So I'm in a place called In a Show in Donegal, and it's Loch Foyle. So I'm looking over here now to Giant's Causeway. And Portrush. My mother was born in Portrush. I'm looking over to my mother's birthplace. It's literally, as the crow flies, it's about 2 miles across the water. So I've come home to my mum's birthplace, which is quite extraordinary.
That feels quite emotional, actually, doesn't it?
It does. I feel very connected here, actually. Oh. Very, very connected. In fact, more so than when I was growing up in South Wales, because my father wasn't from South Wales, he's from North Wales. And, you know, even though I loved growing up there, both my parents are resting there, so I have a reason to go back. There was always this journey, like, where am I going to end up? So ending up here. But the community is lovely. And again, the yoga's really helped me with that, because I now do community classes. So I know an awful lot of people, and we're coming together, and it's that lovely coming together in the yoga classes.
Together in a really empowering way, like we were talking before we came on, like this empowerment of people to connect to themselves in a new way and in a healthy way, whereas perhaps culturally it was just through alcohol, which was a numbing. And again, you know, I mean, the Irish, and I'm generalizing here, are just got such great crack, haven't they? Yeah. Great, you know, attitude to life and things, you know, on the whole. But coming together in a yoga fashion is, I mean, was there anyone teaching that before you went there, or did you bring it to the?
There was a lady who was teaching, and she retired, so there wasn't any yoga for a while. And a young girl had come, and she started some classes, but she wasn't getting the attendance to make it worth her while. So I walked into the community center and I said, I'm thinking of doing do you do yoga here? You know, thinking of doing some yoga class. And she said, I can't believe you walked in, because the lady who was doing the yoga has just said this morning that she's going to stop. Well, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll start it.
There's synchronicity for you, right?
Yeah, and so I've really connected with people, and I think people hearing my journey, I am not one of those women that you talked about at the start, where you're doing handstands and, you know, doing all these yoga poses.
Well, just kind of showing off in a detached way. I mean, again, we talked about it before we came on. I mean, you really care about the women that come to your class, and you can
very much so.
As they come through the door, you notice their hips, like you're really connected, and it feels like you're really aligned, and really love what you're doing. Like we talked about before, like it really matters to you to see women on a 6-week course, like to see them have more confidence in their breath and how they're holding their body, and just to their emotions.
I'm addicted now more to teaching than I am to actually practicing, because it's just amazing. And I've done a lot of work on my own journey, and I'm now just, you know, just put it out with the Crohn's is gone. I don't have Crohn's anymore. I'm in remission.
Well done, Julie.
Thank you. What I did find out in all of this, though, is that, which I wish I'd known before, which it could have been all along, that I'm actually celiac.
Interesting. Did you have that? Is that a test you've done recently, is it? Or
I found that test recently, and they are now doing research in America where they think that Crohn's disease is actually an advanced stage of celiac disease.
Yeah, but again, how you described it at the beginning, you know, was very eloquent and very sophisticated in the fact you understand the brain-body connection. So yes, there's all these other factors too. But I mean, even just seeing you, you know, you're looking peace, you're here, you're in the moment, you've been through the journey. And what does it feel like kind of talking, you know, from where you came from and all these flares that you've had to where you are now?
I've just had, like you, Wendy, I've just had this epiphany of coming from a place where I couldn't go any lower to almost like a rebirth. I know that sounds
No.
But it's like, I am now who I should have been all those years. I've now got the energy. I've got the spirituality. I've got the connection. We're not just with me, my family, my friends, my yogis.
Yeah.
I bring them with me on this journey to show them how amazing it can be.
But you've also got the understanding and the education and the information of your relationship with yourself now, which then enables you to show up, as we talked about earlier, to show up differently with being assertive, putting boundaries in, recognizing when you got an emotional vampire sucking from your neck, you're like, this person off me, you know?
Well, absolutely. I love that actually, because it's like that. And the stress factors that I experienced when I had the flares was all because I didn't have the ability, throat chakra, to say no.
Yeah. That's like a bad word. Well, I use the analogy with my women. It's the 5 P's or the 5 poisons that they need to look at. Produce, which is food.
Yes.
Products, so anything that goes in your hair, nails, skin, whatever SLS is, washing powders. Property, there's all sorts of different things in property. People and past. You know, these 5 P's. And the thing is, because we're this high degree of sensitivity to people around about us and to our environment, to our foods, to our products, to everything, we do need to look at these things, you know, but it's very easy to look at the first 3, produce, products, and property, but the people and past is sometimes the hardest because we've not been taught that it's okay to say no, or say no in different ways, or I'll think about it and I'll come back to you, or you know. And as women, again, we've taken in this conditioning of always being available and bending backwards. I used to joke I turned myself into a pretzel trying to keep everybody you know, and I was miserable.
It's a yoga pose called pretzel, actually.
Oh, I'd love to see you do that.
I don't know if I can. But it's lovely because what you're saying there is it's learning. It's teaching yourself skills that you haven't known before. What is interesting though about what you say about product and food, you know, what we're poisoning ourselves with a lot of the time. I strongly believe that when we start to live in a healthy way, when we start to think about, I'm not putting that on my skin, I'm not putting that in my mouth, I'm not doing all those things. What I have found, and I've got so many people, there's a natural spring here in the village.
Wow.
It is and it's tested all the time. It is the most amazing, clearest, beautiful water you could ever want. I've got everybody drinking that. No one's drinking water from the tap anymore.
Amazing. That's great.
Don't drink the tap. You sometimes pour a glass of water from the tap here and it's cloudy because they put so much chlorine and stuff in it, you know.
It's like here as well. I mean, I need to get, I'm actually in the process of getting it tested because I think it's poisonous. Like
it is poisonous.
Yeah.
And when you're ingesting, you think about the cells in your body, okay? Yeah. And I always, you know, when you cut open a pomegranate, okay, and you'll get that odd little seed in there, and that's like, oh, that's, you know, that's the rotten one, and you check, but they've all got this structure, the shape of the pomegranate seed. I always think of that, I visualize that being like the shape of our cells in our body, and there's always going to be a little bad one in there. And when we're flushing out with the lymphatic system, we're hoping that that little bad one will go out and flush out, and it goes back to those stagnant pools that I mentioned earlier, that if we don't get it out, those little cells that are actually not very nice, they could be cancerous cells, or they could be, you know, disease cells that we just need to flush out. And if we keep putting in our body poisons and toxins, they're going into the cells also. So what you might find is this lovely structure of your cell, your cellular, at a cellular level, we're starting to destroy that. And I strongly believe that that will affect your cognitive function.
Of course,
your brain
clarity of thought and
your clarity, exactly,
and energy, the physical energy, because the body is struggling to get through the day, let alone you know, deal with anything.
You're exhausted. Your body is absolutely exhausted, and so what happens is that when you're talking about the past and the people, we can't get out of that because our bodies need so much help. When we make ourselves healthy through our diet and through our thoughts, it's very easy to say, that was the past, I'm not doing that again. And I'm going to tell you, no, I'm not doing that. And it comes. And I think those two keys.
Exactly. But I'm hearing from you, like, you really understand now, like myself, like we've had to learn the hard way. As you said, you couldn't have gone any lower. And I was the same. I was bedridden, near total organ failure for 2.5 years. Like, I was like trying to fight. If I just have to do it better and be better and please more people, I'll be fine. And my body's like, hello, absolutely not. And I had to learn.
I remember you came out of hospital and I came to see you and I brought you some soup. Yes. And you were sitting in your chair and you were like a little bird. You were like, you'd broken your ways. You were so much pain and I just need to go to bed. And it helped you into bed.
I remember you were such a sweetheart.
And you just crawled in and went to fetal position with your hot water bottle. Oh, no, I remember you, Wendy. You were broken.
Yeah. And it's interesting you relaying that, because it's quite emotional, even thinking back to those, and I know yourself when you were in hospital, I think I was still bedridden. We were both broken by trying to do everything for everyone, and we didn't recognize our value at all. And you were amazing. Like, you were so super sweet in so many ways, to so many people. And I know when you left to go to Bath, I was sad because, like, I knew that we related to each other, but we were both like trying to, like, Charles Atlas trying to hold the world up, but we couldn't even, like, that was my biggest awakening, was I have to take care of myself if I do want to help anyone else first. And that's pretty much what you're saying about, making sure we get the best possible food and products and stuff, because we value ourselves and we recognize our bodies are so sensitive that if we put any rubbish in, we get rubbish out, and we need energy to protect ourselves. So we have that right, to
that protection will serve us. Okay. Exactly. It'll serve us well. And even if you haven't got any orange or red lights that are, shining up,
flashing in the car,
flashing, doing all of that, it's like, think of it a car analogy, if you will. You're going to go on a long journey, the rest of your life. Your tires are pumped, you've got oil and your windscreen washers are done, you've got petrol in the tank, you've just had it valeted, brand new car, off you go, put the roof down, let's go.
And you have a map. You have a map to the destination you want to go to, and you're on the right road, because that's the thing as well. And that's what I'm hearing from you and your journey, which was so beautiful. And that's why I wanted to bring you on to share your journey, is because you've recognized the value of you emotionally, spiritually, and equally understand that your body were trying to get your attention to come inward. You went to the mat to get space. And you were like, I'm okay. And I think it's that phrase, I'm okay. It's quite powerful when the yoga did that for me. It's like I was on the mat, I was crying, going, okay, I'm okay. Just in this moment, I'm okay.
And you're like,
and I can breathe. I can breathe. And it felt almost scary. I don't know about you, actually getting oxygen into my body in that way. I felt like I was so tense way back then. I had to keep like almost brittle in a shell, with my head about to go back in like a tortoise, because it's like, if I didn't, then I was going to be attacked from all angles. I didn't know how to protect or prevent or to say no or things like that. I just kept doing, and it was exhausting.
It was exhausting. And I found actually with the yoga as well that I had to fit the yoga in around my busy life. And you said earlier that, it's hard. You get out of routine, like COVID took us out of routine. And, I said to you before, when I was teaching yoga classes, I had 18, 20 people in the yoga class. After COVID, they were down to 8 to 10 people. And I kept thinking, where is everybody?
I know.
Are you all okay? Please tell me you're okay and come back.
And I love that you said that, because you're right. I think everyone gets sucked in Scotland. It was like almost 2.5 years we're in lockdown. It was misery.
And they closed all the gyms and they closed all the yoga studios, and there was no contact. And I lost, there are people that I saw on a regular basis that I haven't seen since before the studio was locked down 4 years ago for 2 weeks. And I know, it wasn't
years later.
Years later. But I remember coming home. So I I'd lived and worked in Central Bath. So my commute was wasn't very long.
Yeah.
My boys were in their teens, so they were, more than capable to come home and sort themselves out. Tim worked from home anyway. So I'd come home, I would cook dinner so that I could race out the door to get to a 7 or a 7:30 yoga class in the evening.
Yeah.
Literally crawling to the class thinking, I've got no energy and no energy. But coming out like bing, bright eyes.
Yeah.
Feeling amazing, and then coming back, talking 10 to the dozen, and having that energy, and then going to bed and sleeping like a baby, and it became addictive.
Yeah, but addictive in a really healthy way. I think I did a podcast on healthy addictions because that's an oxymoron, if you like, those two words, healthy addiction. But I love that because what you describe is most people are on this treadmill or this hamster wheel, and everybody's sucked into this indoctrination. We all kind of drink the same Kool-Aid at some point where we go, oh, if I can just get this house sparkling and immaculate and my husband happy and my kids perfect and then everything, then I can, so we're last on the, if everything else is okay, then we can come back and check into ourselves. But I'm hearing for you, like myself, and there's times I have to, sometimes I can feel myself pulled into old ways, and then I obviously know enough now that no, we have to come back to me first, fill myself up, and then I can give from the overflow, which then means that I have the energy and the joy. And that's why we both teach now.
Yes.
Come from a place of the scars, not the wounds. We come from a place of being filled up, which feels lovely. Otherwise you become resentful and you become exhausted and drained and pained. No, the pained is at the bottom. That, we can't allow ourselves ever to come down. So I think I want to say to the listeners, what you and I are saying is like, we have to modify and change certain things, but don't be scared of change, because we all seek change and fear change in equal measure, but we can make the change we want, but still give and still have a beautiful clean house and still refurbish things and do all the things, but we come from a filled up perspective.
Absolutely.
Rather than crawling along the ground and like flopping into bed and like broken birds,
exactly. And you don't get, talk about brownie points, you get brownie points for hoovering the sitting room every day and doing the ironing and forcing yourself to have this this perfect home, this perfect life. You make it perfect by having the attitude to have the energy to make whatever you've got going on in your life fit into what feels good for you. And it's that feeling good. It's that feeling that you can cope. It's that feeling that I'm in control of this.
And I'm enough. And I value myself.
I'm enough. Absolutely. And we all doubt ourselves. We all have these feelings. And I think anxiety has its birth in disease, and a lot of diseases, stress, anxiety causes so much unease in the body. It causes all diseases will have their points of origin in the gut because of the inflammation. And the anxiety is in the gut also. So if you feel your butterflies flipping all the time, that's a signal. If you can feel everything turning over, something is not right.
And it's so interesting what you say about anxiety and that butterfly thing, because again, it feeds back into listening to yourself. So how do you listen to yourself? And for me, anxiety is a little part of you that needs more information, that perhaps doesn't have the language skills. So it's a body sensation, because before the ages of 2, there is no language. When we were little humans, we had no language before the age of 2 and maybe the age of 3. We just had body sensations. So I love that. Exactly. If they're feeling anxiety, there's a tendency to want to shove it and run it or become or busy ourselves or do something to distract it. But even just putting a pinky toenail, fingernail into kind of writing out who you were just around, what you were just doing, or what did you just eat, or where were you? Because sometimes even just identifying that can be enough of a eureka moment of, okay, maybe that person, what they might have said something with their words, but actually I was picking up a different signal and that made me feel a bit uncomfortable. Or do you know what I mean? There can be,
yes, I do.
We're a lot more intuitive And
Yeah.
with our
And what you say
better.
is really important as part of the healing process as
Yeah.
well. And I think you journal, which is fantastic. And I was taught to journal in my teacher training. So
Oh, good.
when I started, that's what part of when you become a yoga teacher is learning how to journal and learning how to teach people how to journal as well. And you don't have to be, you know, maybe you don't like writing, maybe that's not your thing, and you don't want to journal all the day. So I would start by setting an intent every day. What's my intent today? Okay, yesterday I felt this, I felt that, the other. And then you find that your journaling becomes can only be 2 or 3 words some days, but you put something down. And I find that every single time I write an intent that I'm not sure about, okay, so say I said my intent is my throat chakra, I can guarantee by the end of the day I've opened my journal because I know what it is, and you've got it. Amazing. You know.
But that's crucial what you said, like, and that's the thing about anxiety. If people can just write down, I feel really, even notice without judgment, I feel really anxious. Yeah. And even notice where they feel it. I feel it in my stomach.
Yes.
Just as you say, just allow the gentle inquiry, which allows curiosity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I say to people all the time, if you wake up with a sore neck, why?
Exactly. Your body's trying to speak to you.
Yeah. If your right elbow is like, oh, what's that? What is that?
To punch somebody in the face and you held it back.
Exactly. It could be absolutely anything, and it will, and your body will. It's fun. And if you think about it, because I'm very visual.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic, so my whole life I've realised that I've done things in patterns rather than in words, which is quite ironic.
Great.
Well, I wrote picture books.
Fantastic adaptation. You know, you're a creative, so of course.
So, my children's books were written through what I had in my pictures in my mind rather than what I was writing. But having that pictorial view of things, I imagine, I make my boys laugh a lot actually, because every single organ and every single thing in my body has a different voice.
Nice.
And I imagine there's little, do you remember there used to be a book years ago, The Numbskulls, and they lived in your brain and they were all in there in the rooms tapping out, So there's all these little different personalities around your body. And I'm thinking if your stomach is grumpy and there's like really grumpy things down in your stomach, don't feed them.
Well, exactly. And even just I try to go, that's interesting. I wonder what's going on, or and not go, oh my God, what's happening? Disaster. Oh, and then go down that spiral. Where now I make it, like I had this sore tooth and I knew it's because I'd bitten down in it, and then I had this tight jaw, like I was telling you about, and I could feel it getting bigger, and I'm like, it's okay. But we're not ignoring you, but it's okay. Yeah. So I went to my journal and I'm like, what just happened before half an hour ago? Who was I speaking to? What was it about? What is it that, because normally if we're holding something in our body and we're holding it, is because it's in conflict with another.
And that's throat chakra. So that is conflict. Absolutely.
Exactly. But there's invariably, so there might be a part of you that wants to lash out, and another part of you going, no, I don't think so. Another part's going, yes, I want to lash out. No, I don't think so. And then this other part comes together and goes, okay, I hear you both. So onto the paper, pen on paper. That's where the power is. And then you can so rather than, have a reaction where you're storing and storing and storing like a volcano, then you erupt. And then you feel the shame and everything. You're just observing and you're noticing. And that works well, I think.
It's brilliant.
It just widens this kind of capacity for curiosity. And then when you have the curiosity, you can develop the compassion, because self-compassion is really hard for women like us, because we have this big thing with nails in it and we beat ourselves up. So we're learning not to beat ourselves up anymore and just show up and go, interesting. And then when we're around other women like us, we realize that we're not alone and we're not different, and we're that there's not something wrong with us, in inverted commas.
There isn't.
We're okay as we are.
There isn't.
And this is the journey.
And I don't know about you, but I actually get huge amounts of pleasure being that person that people want to come to as well when they're feeling that anxiety. And it's I find it very rewarding as a teacher when somebody trusts me enough to ask me, or, you know, I'm feeling this, what do you think it is? And then you're able to, you know, guide them and give them some tools to go away with. And then they come back, and invariably they'll come back to you and say, thank you so much. I feel so much better now.
That's nice.
And being able to share. And it's a wonderful, I'm very humbled actually by being a yoga teacher. I really am. And I think
you found your I think I'm so glad you found this as your calling, because I think for me, knowing you, you know, that and seeing you where you're at, you know, where you're living and what you're doing, it feels so like, in my body for you, it just feels so aligned with who you were at your core. And sometimes we have to go like 3 or 8 signs of a hexagon, you know, before we find we were finding, oh, we're okay with this, and this is who we are, and we kind of drop the shell of all the other people we thought we had to be happy. And actually, so to be able to help guide people from our own,
absolutely, and a healing journey. I consider it a healing journey, not just for me, for anybody that wants to be around me or with me or come on that journey with me, and healing together. And it's a beautiful circle, as you say. You're coming around, and I mean, I'm, you know, nearly 60, and I'm thinking I'm probably happier now than I've ever been, because I recognize, and I actually, even those moments of anxiety and stress and those moments of illness, I'm actually really grateful for them sometimes.
It's funny you say that. I just said that to Sebastian this morning. I said, you know what, we'll all go through challenges, but they're making, I have this phrase as well, whereas our ego wants us to stay stuck in a velvet rut, but our soul always wants us to grow. And then we might fight the kind of, oh, I don't know. And then actually you know, sometimes it forces upon us different things, and then we're kind of forced to grow, but then we go, oh, it's so nice at this particular, why did I fight it for so long? And then I go, you know what, I wouldn't wish what happened to me on anyone, but I'm glad it happened to me. And I guess you and I had to go as low as you could possibly go, so we can then come from teaching from the scars and be able to sometimes say without even words, being able to empathetically connect with someone and say, I get you, I'm here, we're holding you, I believe in you, you can do this, no matter what anyone said. And they're normally drawn to us because they know intuitively, instinctively.
I think the people that are drawn to us are intuitive. I think they tap into
energy,
our energy, and our spiritual path as well. And there's that connection.
And because we're not kind of sitting on a pedestal talking down to people and saying, oh, we're wonderful now, by the way. I used to, at least to freak me out, people like that, you know, whereas I loved when people were like just a couple of steps up ahead of you, and you can do this, and you go on somebody else's belief of you, until you go, oh my God, I never thought, like you were saying with your Crohn's, you're like, is this it? Am I stuck with this forever? Am I going to have to get my intestines cut out? And like, oh my God, you know?
But I can't tell you how many times they said, oh, we'll just need an operation, and we'll cut you open and take your intestines out. And I'm like, no, you're not.
No, I remember you and I having a conversation, because I know your mom had a hysterectomy, and you'd say
she didn't. She didn't. She had
was it Tim's mum had a hysterectomy?
Tim's mum had a hysterectomy, yes. But my mum had fibroids. And the doctors all wanted to give her a hysterectomy, and she was like, I am not having you come in anywhere near me with a knife. I'll just go through it. Thank you very much. And of course, when she went through menopause, the fibroids then recede. They shrink back. I have them too, and they've gone back, and they go back. Either side, and they were painful for a couple of years, not to the degree that you would have experienced the pain, but you know, the same, you know, when you've got pain, there's certain Crohn's and fibroids and all those sort of things. But she was like, no, I'm not. I'm determined not to.
And I do remember asking, I think, were you not saying she was the only one in the village that hadn't? And I remember thinking,
that's right. Absolutely, that's so well remembered. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I remember even where we were standing, because I know you and I were very much on the same wavelength when I was going through my stuff and you going through your stuff. We were both like adamant, like, no, we have to hang on to our body parts. Like, you can't just
hang on to them.
Come back in afterwards. It's not a kind of, you know, return policy when it doesn't work out. You know, we have to live in the body that they finished tinkering.
Exactly. And as you know now, every single part of your body, every single cell, whether it's a tissue cell or a muscle cell, whether it's the fascia, whether it's the spinal fluid, whether it's synovial fluid, every single part of our body has been created for its particular purpose.
Absolutely. It is needed. It's it used
needed.
to drive me nuts when I hear people say, oh, we'll just get rid of your uterus. What, like an empty crisp packet that you finished eating the crisps? So we'll just, it's a baby bag that's redundant. And I do remember sort of saying to a few male doctors, well, we can chop off your parts too at the same time if you like. If they're that disposable, these parts, let's chop off yours.
Just love to do that.
Stick it on the chopping block and I'll just get that cleaver.
They wouldn't, and actually that's a very fair point. I think women have accepted for years that a hysterectomy is normal,
and it's not.
It's not. No,
it's not.
It isn't. And it may be that you're having heavy periods through perimenopause. It may be that you're in a little bit of pain, whatever. But it will pass. It will go. Your
body is speaking to you. Your body is speaking to you.
And I find you need your body, and what you need to do in those stages is work out what's going in there as well, and what's and you've done that journey with the food.
Yeah, I mean, I have no symptoms, no diseases, nothing, diddly squat now, which is just, I had adenomyosis, I had endometriosis, I had cysts, I had thyroid issues, I had mitochondria dysfunction, I had chronic fatigue syndrome, I had everything. And I remember the doctor was pretty much like, oh, she's a hypochondriac, we've tried everything. And I just remember literally going, oh my God, so if I can come back, and I know you can come back from these stages, then I hope that this podcast is an inspiration. But I wanted to say to people, obviously, you do online coaching classes and stuff. You do one-to-ones, you do group stuff. So we'll put the details in the in the content underneath this video and this podcast. But you can learn, and I know your website's about to be under construction, but you can go to juliehegarty.co.uk and learn more about Julie. But if you get the chance to work with Julie, then jump on it, because you're going to be running some more kind of in-person retreats and things as well, aren't you, in summer? So
we're renovating, which is why the website's in progress, because we're just coming to the end of our renovation. So I'll be doing some small 8 persons max weekend retreats, real immersion into yoga, not just into the yoga practice, but we look at all the food here is Ayurvedic food. Nice. So if I know your body type before you come, you're only going to have food for your body type when you come. So it's really nourishing. Okay. And there's beautiful.
And do you do the kind of Irish jigs as well? Is there a night for a few little bit Irish tipple, Irish whiskey?
they can be arranged if you. My husband's got a great Irish accent. He's quite entertaining.
Well, I can remember you, darling. I have to say, you were the.
We're lucky we've got our own beach here, so we do cold water swimming. We've got a sauna, so we do the cold therapy as well. So that's fantastic as well. But I teach online, as you say, as well, and it's just every single day I am so grateful that I am here. I'm doing the yoga and I'm doing something that has made me feel so good, and I just do yoga every day.
Yes. Well, look, I just want to say for the record, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Wendy. You too.
Because I know where you've been and where you've gone and how hard it's been, and you and I are the type of women that we put a brave face on and we kind of just keep moving forward. But sometimes, it's just nice to pay respects to the parts that kept us going when we wanted to give up, and when we just wanted to be thought like, is it worth carrying on? Is this the body we're going to have to live in? Is there anything beyond this? So to the women that are listening, I hope that this podcast inspires you. And for goodness sake, if you get the opportunity to work with Julie, then make sure to go and check her out. But Julie, in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a joy.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you again, Wendy. And that closing speech was just so beautiful and so perfect. And I think you're amazing as well. So your work you've done with people, the work you've done to help other people, it's incredible. You're very inspirational. I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. You'll make me cry. Well, look, I'm going to pause in a second and then we'll chat after the pausing. But Julie, thank you so much. And we'll hopefully have you on again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one. The world needs a healthy you.